All right. Hello, everybody. We are live. Thanks for bearing with us. I was running a little bit behind after doing some kid activities today, but you are with us here at A Democrat and a Republican Walk into a Bar, the live online version. And I am your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banyai.
I am your Republican host, Sean Hartman, and you may be hearing the news in the background on my end because we are in an interesting time to get going live. There was, in case anyone is following, of course, if you're listening to this after, you already know this and know more information than we do right now, which is that there was a second assassination attempt on President Trump. It looks like the Secret Service are about to show up shortly to do a brief press briefing, so we'll be able to break that to you live here on a Democrat and Republican Walk into a Bar. Very rare we get to do something like that, of course.
Yeah.
But what it looks like we do know is that Trump was at his golf course with a donor, and they were out, and then the advance team who went before him to the other holes, they noticed an individual with some sort of AK style weapon. There was an engagement. The Secret Service opened fire. They were able to detain him, and Trump and the other individual were quickly rushed away. No hits were no one got near anyone towards Trump. Trump is safe. This is really the work of the advance team doing their job and stopping the threat before it could become a threat. That is, of course, what we know now, and we are waiting. It does look like we have the microphones up, so it should be any minute now that we get Secret Service, FBI, police out here giving us more information. But yeah, again, this is happening. This is another story that we're having to deal with again with the political. Well, honestly, I don't even want to say what it is yet because we don't know any information. We don't know if
we
this
don't
was
have enough
politically
information.
motivated. We don't know if this was Iran. We don't know if this was just some crazy person. We don't know if hey, it might have been Trump. Maybe this guy was angry at Steve, what's his face, that was with him and was trying to kill that guy. We have no information. We are riding in the dark. So while we wait for more information to come in, let's talk about the debate, I guess.
Well, hold on. Let me make a response to this because yes, it's true we don't really know what's going on, but I think it is worth noting that there was an assassination attempt on Trump earlier, where there was a young man who had shot him, and that's where he had gotten injured in his ear, and another spectator at the rally had died. There was a plot to assassinate Trump that was being coordinated by Iran, allegedly in response to his hit on
Qasem Soleimani. Yeah,
Soleimani. That's correct.
Yep.
And so that was actually foiled by intelligence. So that was an important thing. So what I want to say about this, though, overall, at least in the domestic U.S. context, is that I have been sounding the alarm for quite a while about this heightened political rhetoric that we're seeing. I will stand today and every day against violent political rhetoric. I will stand against any type of language and use by leaders and officials, politicians, pundits that dehumanizes groups of people and that normalizes violence against any individual or group of people. We talked about this going back to Christian Ziegler saying he's going to eliminate all Democrats from the state of Florida, right? I have been worried about this inflammatory rhetoric that we've been seeing, and actual real world violence is a consequence of that. So I want to just say that, like you said, we don't know exactly what the circumstance is, but I think it's always a good time to reaffirm and recommit ourselves to civilized dialogue.
Agreed, which is again why we have this show, to have civilized dialogue between a Democrat and a Republican, who will eventually be in a bar sometime soon. I'm hoping.
We get our new host. We can make a pitch
thumbs
for
up
that. If you
camera.
have a bar location that would like to host this podcast, we'd love to talk with you about that. We've been looking for a new home. We loved being at Ollie's, and they closed down earlier this year. But we would like a place. It doesn't have to be 100% quiet, but we need a little bit of space to be able to do this. But we would also like to have space for our Democrat and Republican friends to come and join us. So let us know. Send us an email, send us a text message, send us a DM on social media. We would love to talk to you, Southwest Florida, about where the new home of a Democrat or Republican walk into a bar would be. Do you want to talk about the debate now?
Well, yeah, it does look like they just came in, but let's talk about the debate while they begin talking and just don't go
Okay.
into the spiel and then we'll. So, yeah, we did have the presidential debate. I will say the benefit of having very low expectations is that technically Trump did exceed my expectations. I think he had some strong points, especially at the end, but of course he had some not so strong points. Kamala, I think, was very successful at pushing the right buttons, so I applaud her for that. She was successful in that. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff where it was like when he was talking about the 2016 election, you just wanted him to say something else. Him bringing up, I guess Haitians are eating dogs now, was not a good look. I don't know why he's bringing that up. And there was a lot of stuff that I didn't like, but I think he hit hard on quite frankly Kamala Harris's lies against him, both against Project 2025, which again, as I've said multiple times, he is not involved in. He did not create it. It is not his policy platform.
Listen, no one's trying to say that Donald Trump created anything.
Yeah, you give him too much credit. Anyway, but the other part of it is, hang on one moment. I want to see. Person was running out of the bushes and jumped into a car, or jumped from the car and now into bushes.
I just got a notification that said that the FBI is investigating this as a potential assassination attempt.
Yeah. So they were it looked like he had a GoPro to take photos. So he was going to take photos of the shots of the assassination, whether to put it online or whether it was like proof if he was like hired by a third party. We don't know yet.
Like an elaborate TikTok challenge?
I don't know. Who knows? That's possibly something. Yeah. So it looks like he was spotted getting out of the car and going into the bushes. So they. Okay, so they're of course arrested him. So yeah, the other part of it is the national abortion ban that was brought up. President Trump has never said he would sign a national abortion ban, but Kamala Harris made it very clear that she thinks he will without any evidence. And I understand it's a great, abortion is a great issue to run on. It's been a big winner for you guys, but Trump has made it very clear he's a states' rights guy when it comes to this. I don't think he will support a national abortion ban.
He's not made any position clear on that.
I think he's made it very clear that it's a state right. Yeah, amendment because it's a state issue.
He's proud of overturning Roe v. Wade.
Yes,
he's talking about the states' rights. But I mean, in all likelihood, and that's what Kamala Harris was trying to pin him to, is that if it was passed by Congress, he would sign it. I think that's.
I don't think he would. No, I honestly say, and I know he didn't say it specifically, but I honestly believe he would veto the bill. I do not think he would sign a national abortion ban.
Anyway, he was proud of Roe v. Wade. She ran with it. That was yeah. So here's what I've seen from the analysis too, and I actually hosted 2 different watch parties, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Mm-hmm. But the overwhelmingly people and pundits and politicians are saying that Kamala Harris won the debate, that Trump was not disciplined. Trump was talking about random things. He was very easily baited about things like his rally size, talking about really crazy things like the cats and the dogs, and that he really was successful, I guess, at pivoting back to immigration, but then kind of also, had really horrific, dehumanizing language that went around with it. So pundits and things like that are basically widely saying that Kamala Harris, and by the way, including 3 pundits employed by Fox News, have said that Kamala Harris resoundingly won the debate. However, I think that the distractions that like the cat and the dog thing came out of the debate, took away from people's ability to process what had happened, some of the things that Kamala Harris had said, and took away from the discussion on what types of policy plans and what type of positions that she was able to put out there, and anything about her own identity. What I know we've heard from undecided voters thus far is they don't feel like they're very informed about Kamala Harris. And I'm not sure that the debate did anything to sway those voters.
Yeah, debates in general don't really sway voters either which way usually. But yeah, this was a night where everything was no one really talked about the policies of either side. But then you're dealing with, now you just have these ridiculous talking points, and everyone's talking about they're eating the dogs, and it's like
reading the dogs. There's like techno.
And you're right.
Movies,
yes, you put it on an EDM remix. But I 100% agree with you that Trump lacked the discipline. He clearly did not prepare properly, which is frustrating for me as a Republican, and I want my Republican nominee to take this seriously and take these debates seriously. But yeah, I think it could have been better, but I expected a lot worse, and I think he hit on some strong points in certain areas. So I think it was like a 50-50. But once Harris got under his skin, it was clear he couldn't handle himself. So that's not a good thing to show, especially with the question of temperament.
Well, we do know that Trump was preparing for the debate, if that could be said, with Laura Loomer, who was somebody that's been in the news. So how do you feel about Trump being loomered?
I don't even know what that means, loomered. Is that like something she? Does she call? Is that something she does?
It's actually the name of her podcast, by the way. It's Laura Loomer's podcast.
I don't know. I know of Laura Loomer. I don't know Laura Loomer. I don't follow Laura Loomer. Laura is an interesting character for sure. I think she was the lady who like freaked out over, I guess, a Trump play where they were doing Macbeth but with Trump, or Hamlet but with Trump, and she got all butthurt about it.
Laura Loomer was like one of the first people to ever get thrown off Twitter, like before it was a thing.
Yes, I do know that. Yes.
And because she is like well known as a very, very extreme far right pundit who, talks a lot about very openly and over racist things. Like she's very heavy into like Islamophobia and things like that.
He was apparently, where they caught the gunman was about 300 to 500 yards. Let me rewind it to double check that, but it looks like they were about only a few hundred yards away from Trump. Hang on, I want to re-listen to that.
So we're getting the breaking news from the potential assassination attempt on Donald Trump. The FBI has confirmed that they are investigating it as an assassination attempt, and Sean is giving us updates as to how it's happening in real time.
Yeah,
and
it looked like
he was apprehended just a few hundred feet from
yards, a few hundred
Trump.
yards. So pretty close by to where he was, where the advanced team were able to apprehend.
So that'll be ongoing here.
Yeah.
Just back to, because I want to talk about Laura Loomer for just a minute, because, and then let's move forward, because I think she's also a distraction, frankly. But so she had been prepping with Trump. People had seen her quite a lot around Mar-a-Lago recently, and a lot of photos were being shared around social media of the two of them getting very handsy with one another. That is Laura Loomer and Donald Trump, which led to speculation as to whether or not they're having an affair, and the fact that Melania Trump has not been in the vicinity of Donald Trump in a very long time. I really feel like this is like Donald Trump harkening back to his tabloid days, where it's like all publicity, all news is good news kind of thing to keep the attention on himself. You said that you don't follow her, so like I just think that she's always been somewhat of a sideshow. But I don't know, this kind of tickled me because it was very tabloid. Very tabloid.
Well, I do know that even JD Vance has condemned her. So I mean, I've heard, she's made
Even Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yes, that's where I really heard the story is when Marjorie Taylor Greene is calling you crazy and calling you nuts. That's saying something. That's if you're too crazy for, that's like ISIS being too crazy for Al Qaeda or was it Al Qaeda? Yeah, they were part
not
of
extremist enough, right?
Yeah, ISIS was too extreme for Al Qaeda. That's what Laura Loomer is. Laura Loomer is the ISIS of the far right.
There was all sorts of crap that was going on this, and I guess one of the things that tickles me to a certain extent about Laura Loomer is that she just says like the wildest shit. And one of the things that she's beefing, like going back and forth with Marjorie Taylor Greene, is she was like trying to drag her about her affair and blah blah blah. But then she says that she's got an Arby's sandwich in her pants. For those of you that eat Arby's, you can maybe kind of visualize what Laura Loomer was getting at in her her dragging. Laura Loomer said that Marjorie Taylor Greene had a quote Arby's sandwich in her pants. And that's what it's like.
Why? I don't need that visual. I should have never asked. I should have never tried to figure out.
Listen, I read it and it was in my mind, so now somebody else has to deal with that as well. Which was just kind of like a hilariously disgusting thing to say. But that's where Laura Loomer takes it. So anyway, I don't want to. I
don't know. Marjorie Taylor Greene seems like someone who would do like vaginal CrossFit, where she would just like Google CrossFit, where she's like lifting up. Doing.
You probably got there's like a rejuvenation, I think is what they call. Anyway, I don't want to know. I don't want to know any of that.
Yeah,
so
we don't need to know this type of information.
And again, like I think that I don't know. Like, is this really a strategy and a ploy? I mean, it could be, or is it just some dumb shit that Donald Trump is doing? I believe that too. I don't know. The other thing, though, I did want to.
Someone's on the say no. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
So one thing I do want to talk about that's not the debate, but related to the debate, is actually what has been going on locally here in Southwest Florida with politics, in the parlay between local politics and the national level. So, people, you may have heard. Pundits, a couple pundits on CNN, and Nikki Fried has been out in full force saying things like Florida is in play. There's been some polling to indicate that there's been a shift in Florida, that potentially it can move into the toss-up category instead of just a most likely red, most likely Republican going for Donald Trump in the Electoral College. So this has actually brought a heck of a lot of attention to us here in Florida, unlike I've ever seen. So we hosted the debate.
Go ahead. I saw you had a senator in as well, but
senator yesterday. So we had the debate. We had Republicans for Harris came. So this was a campaign event from the Harris Walz campaign where they had a surrogate who spoke at the DNC, Rich Logis. He was a former Republican, MAGA, Donald Trump supporting. He was an organizer for the Trump 2020 campaign, and he regretted it, and he came over, and he is now one of the co-chairs of the Republicans for Harris campaign. So meeting and hearing from him was interesting. We also had statewide events trying to hold with the women's clubs and caucuses around the state, watch parties as well. So I was actually involved with helping to organize and coordinate events in two areas around Southwest Florida, one in Fort Myers and then one in Eastleigh and Lehigh. And this was with thousands of other watch parties around the country. So a lot of things have been going on. It's very interesting, very exciting. I've never seen, like I said, never seen this level of attention on, especially us here in Southwest Florida. Like you mentioned yesterday, we did have events with the Harris Walz campaign. We had Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who is from Rhode Island. He's a big environmental activist, and he came down and did an event in Fort Myers. We had 100 people there. We had 150 people in Naples as well. Naples also included Carrie Lerner, who's running for Congress, included Debbie Murcassel Powell, who's running for Senate, and Tim Martin, who is the DNC vice chair and the chair of the Minnesota Democratic Party, and Nikki Fried, the chair of the Florida Democratic Party. So we had, coming to Naples, a pretty good segment of folks who are representing the party and who are reaffirming to us that they believe that Florida is in play. Also noting that the week before, we had an event again with Debbie Murcassel Powell. It was about a week and a half before that. And Jamie Harrison, who is the chair of the Democratic National Committee. And what Tim Martin had said to us is that, look, it's not a coincidence that you've had two high-ranking members of the DNC come to Southwest Florida, because things are changing, people are being energized, and Florida is in play.
Yep. So take note, Republicans. Again, we actually have to work to keep Florida red. This isn't just a one and done. This isn't just Trump parades and flags flying everywhere. Honestly, that'll probably anger the Democrats more and get them more out to vote to show them otherwise. So we need to start doing boots on the ground phone banking, and we are, thankfully. But Republicans have a tendency to think that we have this, and they're looking at, oh, look at all these Republicans who are registered to vote now in Florida. We have over 1 million Republicans. We're going to be fine. We don't know that for sure. And I know that a lot of them dropped off after the primary, which proves my point that a lot of these people were just primary voters that were probably wanting better Republican candidates or wanting to vote in the Republican Party and are now back to being Democrats or independents, which we see that quite often. So we can't.
Overall, we had a very low primary turnout anyway. So I'm kind of interested to see how this will turn out overall.
Yeah. Well, look, if we lose Florida, it's game over. Any other state that we can try to win, it doesn't even freaking matter if we lose Florida. That we can win Georgia. Yes. I'm gonna pull up the 270 map right now and do the math. I'm gonna check this out. I'm gonna do this right now.
Yeah, you do the math, but this is also what's been used to invigorate Democrats is that even though Florida hasn't been a swing state in terms of the early strategy in the presidential campaigns, it has been noted, especially as the polls have been shifting in the Democratic direction, that if Florida flips, it is game over for Donald Trump, that there's basically almost no other way that he can win. That's likely, because we will have 30 votes on the electoral map.
Even if we flip Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, and keep North Carolina, we would basically, hang on, we would either have to flip maybe like Wisconsin. Let me see. No, Wisconsin, we don't get it with Wisconsin. We would have to flip Wisconsin and Michigan in order to take. We would have to flip Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan in order to make up for one Florida loss.
Right.
So yeah, that's a big effing deal. It's a big effing deal. The game is dead when it's happened. And you know what? I actually have I think that we put in a lot of laws with the election process. So I think it'd be very hard to reasonably say that it was cheating. And I will say, and I know that this may be the MO of some Republicans, but the reason we have Laura Trump as chair of the RNC and Michael Whatley as chairs of the RNC is because they're tackling this issue proactively and already doing the lawsuits to prevent any of the actual things that happened during the election, which could have been an issue, from happening again. So, in my opinion, this will absolutely be the safest and most secure election out there because of the fact that you have the RNC that Trump chose taking a proactive stance to make sure of that's the case. So if Kamala does win, she wins outright, legitimately, I believe. I believe it. I don't see how, after we put the RNC in place and are taking this proactive stance, how the cheating could occur. But that's just me personally. I know there are.
I will say this too, that actually across the country, our election systems and our election processes are top notch. Okay. Each state sets up their own system. In the state of Florida, we have a division of elections, and then we have partisanly elected supervisors of elections in each county. They then have the protocols through which they go through to make sure that the votes are well taken care of. There's actually so many layers within the system. It's very, very hard to have any sort of fraud. And a lot of the laws that we have in many of the states they find those kinds of things too, right? They find if somebody happened to have, voted when they weren't properly registered. And they find if somebody voted in 2 jurisdictions or something like that. I think that Americans should feel very safe and comfortable with our election system and our election process. Can it be improved? Absolutely. Like everything, right? But, and I can tell you, because listen, I just went through a process locally here in Southwest Florida, locally in Lee County, trying to push an election into a recount. Okay. And a lot of people think, oh, okay, right. Like that's going to, you look at it and it's going to shift a lot of votes. All we had to do is move 62 votes. Let me tell you that actually 62 votes to move is a huge amount. Okay. And this is like things like making sure that the signatures are appropriate, making sure that the addresses match. This is things like looking to see, we were even looking at counting or trying to see whether or not there were undervotes or overvotes that would get thrown out by the machine. And then the supervisors of elections, then they look at it and say, oh, okay, they were clearly voting for this person or clearly not. If they ever have a question, all of those go to the canvassing board. Okay, and the canvassing board either determines what would happen or if the vote, if it clearly shows voter intent or if it gets thrown out. There was basically almost none of those situations. Okay. And there was this whole watched process. We had our candidate there looking and to make sure, we had other observers to make sure that there was no problems, no one was acting inappropriately. And there just wasn't. It was a very professional process. And even if there was a few votes that shifted or something was wrong, or they already went through the process of doing things like matching the signatures and matching the addresses, right? Things that before we had sophisticated technology would have taken longer, right? But now all of our systems in Florida, and it's very similar in other places, are very top notch. And so when election results are fully and totally tabulated, and they're not really official until these canvassing boards or these election boards look at them and certify them, you can actually feel comfortable and feel safe in knowing that there's been so many checks in process that that the vote count is what it is. So there's my pitch of don't get despondent with democracy. Yeah. Let's look at the laws. Yes, if there's any problems, yes, challenge them. But you can feel comfortable that the folks in the election offices are professional people. And like I said, even partisanly elected in states like Florida, right? So we have a Republican elected supervisors of election here. He's always been fair. He follows the law. And even us as Democrats, when we're looking, well,
he follows the law when it comes to election. He follows election law. We'll say it that way. Other stuff, whether or not he misappropriates funds, that's a different discussion.
Hey, speaking of misappropriated funds.
Oh, what are we talking
about? Speaking of misappropriated funds, how about Carmine Marceno?
Oh, yes, I did hear about this, actually. So, yeah, it looks like Mike Hollow, who's the write-in candidate for sheriff, who ran for mayor here in Cape Coral a while ago. So he apparently got a recording from an individual who is alleging that Sheriff Marceno misappropriated funds, basically, and used him for money laundering. Obviously, if this is true, this needs to have a thorough investigation with the FDLE. I would really hope the county commission does a bigger audit on the sheriff and his budget. This is if these allegations are true, similar to the Tommy Doyle allegations. If you're misappropriating funds, you either have to resign or be impeached. And there definitely needs to, and especially if this is done illegally without the proper appropriation process, um, then there needs to be criminal charges against both of these individuals. Now, again, Amira Fox, being the state attorney, would have to give it to a different state attorney because she has, of course, supported the campaigns of Tommy Doyle and um, Carmine Marcina. And I'm pretty sure she would agree with that too, because again, she is. I honestly believe Amira Fox, having met her and spoken with her many times, this is someone who truly believes in equal justice under law and fairness. I don't think I don't think I think if she even was not required to recuse herself, she would recuse herself due to the personal relationships she has, especially with Carmine, but both for Carmine and Tommy, because this needs to be a fair investigation and one not corrupted by personal bias and personal feelings. So this is something that definitely needs to be monitored, needs to be properly investigated by the FDLE, by the state. So we'll see what happens there. Um, but again, all we have right now is just a recording of an individual who's making these allegations. So and it sounds like an aggrieved individual. So you take it with a grain of salt. So we can't fully trust it, but it is something that needs to have a proper investigation. I don't know if Sheriff Marcino or his office has made a statement or anything, but this is something that we need to be monitoring. It's not even about the sheriff or the supervisor or their personalities or who they are or what they've done or all their successes in their position. This is your taxpayer dollars. This is the money that you and I pay when we're paying sales taxes and property taxes. This is that money. So we want to make sure that that money is being used properly. And if it's not, then there needs to be consequences for that misappropriation of funds. And I do not care how great or how popular sheriff you are or how good you are doing as supervisor of elections. I don't give a crap. All right? If you're misappropriating funds, you are betraying the trust of the people who elected you, and you're betraying the trust of the people you serve, and you need to go.
I agree. I think that corruption is unacceptable. I think that misuse of public dollars is unacceptable. I think that anyone who views their dollars that they have in their public institutions as their own private piggy bank to solve problems or to play gift maker with is inappropriate. I've been very, I will say this in terms of the Tommy Doyle thing. I think that if he did in fact pay that woman off with those dollars, that I would be very upset about that. I'm far more concerned about the level of corruption and the LCSO under Carmine Marcino, because I've heard tons of different stories. I did a podcast years back with a woman who got pregnant by him and just the harassment that she faced. And she's not the only one.
No.
So I'm very concerned about this.
I have heard from sources that Carmine does have a bit of a womanizing and a gambling streak, but I haven't been able to confirm those. But I am familiar with the case of the woman I think she was a domestic abuse victim who reported the report to Carmine, and then he either stalked her or they developed some sort of relationship and got her pregnant and then tried to get her to have an abortion, which, as someone who's pro-life,
and apparently is too, so
anyway,
except for when your girlfriend gets pregnant and you think she's too old. So so yeah,
anyway, here's what I want to I agree with you there, because the sheriff of a law enforcement agency, their job is to enforce the law. You can't have corruption in the agencies or entities that are enforcing the law. That by definition is a very bad thing. So with someone with, a sheriff has a lot of power in the community, a lot of power. And I know that there's probably a lot of elected officials who don't want to go after the sheriff, and a lot of Republicans don't like attacking the sheriff. I don't blame them. And I honestly think the sheriff has generally done a good job at keeping us safe. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is a serious allegation of misappropriation of funds, which he has plenty of funds. He doesn't need to misappropriate those funds. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, and it's trust too. Like everything is fine if you're on side, but I think and some of the internal stuff that I've heard as well is there's favoritism is whether or not you are pro Carmine or not within the system. And I know from my own personal experience that there are lawyers, defense attorneys who buy into Carmine's campaign for favorable treatment, right? Like that's not something that should be a thing. Right?
That's nuts right there. That defense lawyers are paying off the sheriff. That is also a very serious allegation if true. Because think about it. The sheriff, this is a law and order sheriff. He's supposed to be tough on criminals. Now he's being lenient on certain criminals because the defense attorneys are bribing him with campaign donations. So
listen, my ex-husband did it. It came out of my account, right?
Oh,
like,
wow.
I thought about it, and I had asked about it, and I said, "Why are you giving money to Carmine Marciano? You're a defense attorney." And he was like, "Oh, well, because if we do, then it's like, if we got a certain case, then it's just like, oh, well, then then if it's a super tough case, and then he can just, oops, the sheriff doesn't, the deputy doesn't show up that day, kind of stuff." I mean, this is like, it's little kind of dumb stuff, but it's trust.
It makes sense that a defense attorney would think that way, though. Like, if we can buy off the sheriff and the state attorney and all these people, if we can donate to their campaigns, maybe they'll be better to our opponents, or not our opponents, our
clients.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't even be a thing. That should not be a thing.
It absolutely should not. But that is scary to know that's possibly being done, allegedly. But
yeah, it's alleged, but it's like, I fully stand behind investigating this claim. I do hope that whatever conflicts of interest that there may be are mitigated, that the jurisdiction of this is moved out of this area because of those conflicts of interest, and that the state actually looks at this, because I do ultimately think it comes down to the integrity of the force as well, and how much we can trust them.
Exactly. And hopefully there was no wrongdoing. Hopefully this is some dude blowing smoke out of his butt that just has a grudge with Carmine. Who knows? Maybe this is a nothing burger of a story either. So we don't know, but we don't know until we investigate. And if we don't investigate, then we unfortunately have to assume the worst with these allegations, because they are very serious allegations and are worthy of investigation. Anyway, before we get off, because it does seem like Evie wants to grab your attention again, why don't you take this time to gloat about Taylor Swift?
Oh, Taylor Swift. Well, that's good. I'm very excited that Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris. And she came out and signed it as a childless cat lady, which was a dig at JD Vance. that was great. We saw she shared voter registration links. So there was almost 500,000 new voters that were registered because she shared that links. And I think that's great, because I think that anything that inspires young people, she's got a very young audience by comparison, that gets them involved in the process is great. We know that artists and people are going to use their platform. So, whether or not it actually means people are going to get out and vote is another thing. We don't have a lot of great data on that.
You're going to get a lot of preteen voters, I'm sure. No. Here's
I would love to say, all right, great, Kamala Harris has got it in the bag because the Swifties are coming out to vote. But I don't know if that's true. I mean, I think it's a great endorsement. I think that there's a lot of energy behind Kamala Harris's campaign, but we're working all the way through November 5th, because
I figured that taking
nothing for granted.
Most of her audience is probably Biden Democrats and Harris supporters anyway. I honestly thought she wouldn't be making a move or taking a position. I'm not shocked that she endorsed Kamala Harris. I would have been heavily surprised if she endorsed Trump. I think we all would have. But what I really
hates her.
Who hates her now? I hate Taylor Swift. Okay, good. Okay, but the thing I will applaud Taylor for is when she made the endorsement, she asked people to actually do their own research and make decisions on their own, even though she was personally making the endorsement, which I respected. It didn't seem like she was telling people to vote for her, just get out to vote, and explaining her reasoning to vote for her candidate. So I felt that it was a lot tamer than than expected. She wasn't. I think she was purposely trying not to ruffle any feathers, but still wanting to put out there where she stood.
He could have directed the Swiftie army to vote. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah, she could have.
Go and vote.
She could have done more and made it clear, like,
and then they would have made like a bunch of bracelets and off to the polls
exactly.
they go.
Swifties for Harris type of thing. It would have been a whole thing. But she didn't do that. She respected her audience well enough to know that, you know, there might be some people who listen to Taylor Swift who are Trump supporters or Republicans. And that, you know, she didn't want to alienate them, which is always the big issue when you're dealing with taking political stances when you're an artist or a performer, is, you know, you don't want to alienate, you know, possibly half your audience. I think it was Michael Jordan who said, or was it Michael Jordan or someone who, when asked why he wouldn't speak out about something, he said Republicans buy Nikes too, right? So you don't want to, and that's the same with both sides. You know, you have a lot of media performers, not as many obviously, but like I'm sure there was once a time where people like Democrats were into Kid Rock too, type of thing. There were a lot of times where Republicans were into Dixie Chicks. So I generally speaking don't care where an artist or a performer stands on politics. If I got upset at every actor or media personality that was a Democrat, I would have no one to watch. So
sure. It wouldn't affect me at all if I just stop listening to
one of my favorite television actors still remains Bradley Whitford, and Bradley Whitford is a flaming leftist. But
hey, I got a text message from Robert De Niro supporting Kamala Harris the other day.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me. Robert De Niro hates Trump with a passion. So, did you see that's the other thing. Did you see the trailer finally dropped for the Apprentice movie?
Oh no.
You have to watch it. I'm honestly very excited for this movie. So it's Sebastian Stan as Donald Trump and Jeremy, I don't remember his last name, but it's the guy from Succession. He's playing Roy Cohn. And I think Sebastian really, really delves into that role. And I've loved Sebastian, so I found Sebastian Stan on a show called Political Animals. This is before he was the Winter Soldier in Captain America. But he was the gay coke addict son of a former president, and it was sort of right before the 2016 election, and Sigourney Weaver was playing a female Secretary of State whose husband was the former president. They had a divorce, and he was a womanizer, and so it was an obvious Clinton Clinton character kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And it was a very good show. Honestly, it was one of my favorite political shows, and they canceled it after one season with a frickin' cliffhanger, like they always do. But that's where I first discovered Sebastian Stan, and he's also one of my favorite actors these days. But everyone just knows him from The Winter Soldier and a few other things. So
wow.
I'm really excited to see him in this, and it's going to be in theaters, and I am totally going to watch it.
So let's give another shout out to another member of our Big Mouth Media Network, Rebecca Jones. Had her premiere of her movie Whistleblower in Washington, D.C. She had on Friday, she had a special showing of that movie that was produced by Josh Fox and should be available nationwide in the coming months as well. Okay. So congratulations to Rebecca and the team for putting that movie out. That's, of course, about
her with the COVID, right?
COVID whistleblower. Yeah. So that'll be interesting as well.
If I see it at Bell Tower, I'll go do it because I have the Regal Unlimited pass, which is it's very valuable. We see me and my mom see 4 or 5 movies a month with it for $25. It's perfect. So, and
just before we leave, there's one other thing I wanted to say, because some things actually happened in my race here in Fort Myers. So we saw the end of the Beauchamp Boondoggle, #Beauchamp Boondoggle, in case you didn't see. So earlier this summer, we saw McGregor Boulevard got shut down. We also had the bridge going over to Cape Coral, but the McGregor was shut down and then rerouted through the neighborhood. So some aesthetically pleasing historic looking bricks could be laid on the ground. The city put forth all sorts of reasons and excuses why this was. Oh, we're going to fix the pipes and the electric stuff down underneath. Oh, the bricks are going to be traffic calming. It's going to make it safer, blah, blah, blah. So when that happened and really inconvenienced people around the area for about 10, 12 weeks, I started the hashtag Boschette Boondoggle because, listen, Boschette is who I'm running against, but he is on the city council. Not only has been a champion of this project, but those beautiful bricks run all the way down McGregor from the beginning of First Street in front of the Edison Estates and end at Boschette Way, right next to the councilman's beautiful mansion on McGregor. So I knowing what I know about people around the city and that we have so many other priorities, I just did not feel that this was a priority project for the city of Fort Myers. I thought there was too many coincidences, and the fact that it was put in an area, again, that is going to beautify the area that the councilman lives in, without actually, in retrospect, what I learned as well is not a lot of functionality. I conferred with other bike walk my Bike Walk Lee friends, people that I was on the steering committee with for years ago, who are bicycle and pedestrian safety advocates, and they confirmed what I already knew, is that these bricks are not a preferred way of traffic calming and do not overall make the area safer. Additionally, the people had been speaking with the engineers and the people who were in charge of the project, and there was little to no updates to the utilities and the piping underneath as well. So ultimately, my position goes like this. I still believe 100% that this was not a priority project, and it was something that was put forth to beautify a high-end neighborhood in Fort Myers, which I have a problem with. But now my new position on this as well is that I am extremely upset that we were lied to, that all of that there was all these things, the traffic calming and the utilities thing, and that's why we have to do it, right? If you're going to put in an aesthetic project, just say it's an aesthetic project, right? Just say that this is a beautification project and that's what it is, okay? And then just lean into it, because I fundamentally am not against beautification projects. I am against prioritizing one part of the city and one part of the ward and not putting any effort into other areas. I have a problem with that. So rather than just leaning into this being a beautification project, the city and the official city communications on this that they put out in the newspaper as well was that it was something else. And that I have a major problem with. I do not think that it is our city staff's responsibility and job to be cleaning up political mess for the council members. I just don't.
So honestly, if they were saying they were going to do all these things, they should have done all these things. I can understand maybe, okay, there's different studies that disagree about the traffic calming, but where I would be more upset is you guys tell us you're going to do all these updates underground and you didn't, and you're over here telling us, see, if you're doing saying you're going to do all these things and don't do it, that's what I have a problem with. So that's where I agree with you. I haven't really been following this project, obviously. I will say, and I texted you about this the other day, about how I finally met your opponent, actually not at a political event, but at the United Film and Television Artists Group, which is a group of local filmmakers down here. So he was actually at that event as a candidate, as someone who was running. So it was interesting to see him there, and I got a chance to say hi, and I told him that I did this podcast with you. But he honestly seemed pretty nice, pretty chill, like a good guy. So, but again, I'm not following Fort Myers politics all that much. It is and again, I don't know what the priorities are in the city, but I would generally agree. I would say that if you have other things you have to work on, I would see it just like JC Park. There are other things our city can work on right now in our community. other park. We haven't even built all the other parks that we've been doing for the Parks Go Bond. We're over here trying to change J.C. Park into something else. And actually, I do want to talk about that once more before we go. So there was big updates on that, and I'm going to do a quick video for my Facebook as well. But J.C. Park was approved. It's essentially a done deal. I am not 100% sure if a contract has been signed. But essentially a contract is going to be signed and approved. Here's the thing. The new question now that we have to ask when it comes to Save J.C. Park is how far are we willing to go? Because if the next city council decides to shut down the operation, to shut down the project, we will face a lawsuit. We will get sued. It will cost taxpayers thousands, if not a few $1 million. Now, I am of the position that absolutely we should do it. And when John Gunther, Bill Steinke, and Keith Long decide to run for re-election, we hang that lawsuit over their head and make it very clear that it was them and the other council members on that city council, except for Richard Carr and Jessica Costa, from my understanding, the only two who did not vote for it. It is because of that 5 members of council, including Gunther the mayor, Steinke District 1, and Long in District 6, all of whom are up for re-election in 2026. We're going to hold it over their heads and remind everyone they are the reason this lawsuit is happening. It is, but honestly, they should not have done this. I am hoping that the city manager, Michael Ilsixon, who is the Mr. Mizipulkix of last names when it comes to city managers. So I'm hoping he sees the writing on the wall and is negotiating a contract that allows for an easy out. But I mean, the writing, this is not what the public wants, and the next city council will not support it. I don't think. And once that happens, the question now becomes, will that city council have the balls to reverse it, knowing that a lawsuit is coming? So that is the question I'm going to be asking in a few minutes on my face. Actually, I don't know if I can because I can't record on this thing. So we'll see what we do. All right.
So the parting question for today is, will Cape Coral Council have the cojones?
Yes, will the next council have the cojones, per se?
All right, the next council. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here today for a Democrat and Republican walk into a bar or into your living room via Facebook or whatever. Appreciate you. I've been your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banyai.
I'm your Republican host, Sean Hartman.
And if you enjoyed this, we'd sure love your support. You can check out how you can support us on the plans and pricing page at bigmouthmediafl.com. Go ahead and check that out and help us keep the lights on and keep independent media alive in Florida. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.